by disparities in the availability of historical records. Chapter 1. May 5th through June 3rd, 1864. Grant and Lee deadlock at Cold Harbor. Cutting the toenails of our enemy. The Army of the Potomac's grand offensive at Cold Harbor, launched at daybreak on June 3, 1864, had been a dismal failure. Nowhere did the blue-clad assailants gain ground. Lifeless heaps dotted the clearings in front of the Confederate fortifications, bodies stacked like hogs in a pen, a Southerner recalled, some side by side across each other, some two deep, while others with their legs lying across the head and body of their dead comrades. As the day warmed, the fast decomposing dead sent over into our trenches a most sickening and nauseating stench. Another Confederate remembered, while the helpless and fly-infested wounded were left to die a most horrible death. Union survivors of the forlorn offensive, unable to retreat, sought cover behind barricades hastily constructed from dirt and corpses. Troops yet clung tenaciously to the ground nearest the Confederate works, wherever so much as half cover could be obtained, a Federal officer recalled. A Northerner likened the killing field at Cold Harbor to a boiling cauldron from the incessant pattering and plowing of shot which raised the dirt in geysers and spitting sands. It was almost impossible to move and live, a New Englander added, the lifting of a head or hand being the signal for volleys of musketry. A Connecticut man noted that one of the poor fellows would hold up his hand and wave it feebly to plead for rescue, and after one or two had been brutally made a target by the enemy for doing so, these motions ceased and the blue overcoats lay still. Watching from the safety of the Confederate battlements, an Alabaman contemplated the tragedy before him. He had witnessed many a field of carnage and blood, and imagined before reaching Cold Harbor that nothing could surpass the horrors and brutalities of cruel war. He reflected, but this, the Battle of Cold Harbor, was the most horrible of any we had ever experienced. Under cover of darkness during the night of June 3rd through 4th, Federal commanders rectified their main line of entrenchments. Pickets dug pits a few yards in advance, and reserves filled gaps in the fortifications. A few brave souls ventured into the no-man's land between the armies, responding to the groans of the wounded and the dying. It was well nigh impossible to take a step without treading upon some human being, either living or dead, a Northerner recounted. Besides this obstruction, the ground was honeycombed with pits and holes where the men had burrowed for safety during the day's trial. A month earlier, Lieutenant General Ulysses S. Grant had inaugurated a campaign to defeat General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia and bring the American Civil War to a close. Now, for the fourth time in as many weeks, the Confederates had fought Grant to an impasse. Sheltered behind an impregnable wall of earthworks, the flanks of their battlements anchored on marshy streams, Lee's rebels barred the way to Richmond. Why had the Union campaign, initiated with such grand prospects of quick victory, ground to a bloody stalemate? More importantly, how did the new Federal Commander-in-Chief plan to break the deadlock? 1864 was an election year, and President Abraham Lincoln had sound reasons to question whether voters would award him a second term or remove him from office. The Army of the Potomac, led by Major General George G. Meade, had delivered a resounding rebuff to Lee at Gettysburg in the summer of 1863. But Union forces in the war's eastern theater had achieved little of note the rest of that year. Profound weariness, expressed in draft riots and anti-war pronouncements, gripped the northern populace. Unless Federal armies won victories this spring, the presidential race seemed destined to favor an opposition candidate willing to negotiate with the South. Sharply aware of the need for military successes, Lincoln had summoned Grant to Washington. A Midwesterner, the general had emerged as the Northern military's rising star.